not your money. It's our money, the citizens' money. This is gonna add how much per year to the budget? It's gonna add some money, probably about $5,000. That's the way I roughly calculated, but I don't know.
1,000 hours is part-time, so,
It's 1,000 hours?
well, 2,000, it's
Yeah.
public comment, I don't want.
Yeah, okay, well, okay, 1,000
Probably
hours.
10 grand
Yeah, 10 grand.
each.
Oh, wait, 10 grand here, 27 grand here, 5 grand here, 6 grand there, here a grand, there a grand, everywhere a grand. Come on, guys. Somebody's holding you hostage and you're capitulating, you're crazy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Karczewski, resident. I just have a couple questions. I don't know the inspector. I don't know what they get paid anyplace else. But it sounds, Mr. Supervisor, you said 2 weeks ago, he came to you. He gave you his 2 weeks' notice. He said he had a job closer to home that was paying $36 an hour. We're gonna pay him $36 and he's gonna travel all the way to come here. I'm sorry, but if I'm gonna get paid $36 an hour and I live 5 minutes away from work, or I'm gonna pay $36 and live a half hour from work, what kind of job would you take? The one closer to home? So we could still offer him the money and he still could leave. Okay, second of all, if you knew for 2 weeks ago, why didn't you find out what the price was, as you were saying, to contract it out so that we know if it's worth paying him the $36 an hour? Okay? How come we didn't come back with that? You knew for 2 weeks. Why didn't you, 2 weeks ago, look through this and find out what it is? Why are we always waiting to the last minute? And if the gentleman knew, I'm sure if he gave you 2 weeks' notice, he already had this lined up with another employee. Why didn't he come before us and say, well, wait a minute, I'm looking at this other job that's gonna pay me $36 an hour? So it's not something that he knew just 2 weeks ago that he put his application and they gave him the job. He knew way before this. And again, why isn't all this information brought to you before? You had a meeting 2 weeks ago. Why wasn't something said 2 weeks ago? That's, and if you got all that extra money, us bus drivers would like some.
Thank you.
William Bardell, I got a real quick comment. What I want to say is now, if this guy's got to start work tomorrow morning, he probably got his pajamas on. He's sleeping. He should have his fuzzy pajamas on and be sleeping by now. He's got to get up. He's got to be at work at 8:30, so he ought to be in bed. Probably getting up right now to go to the bathroom once and then sleep the rest of the night. I can't see how this job number could get completed by the morning, because he's already got to start work tomorrow. I mean, I don't know. He's got to get up and eat a hard-boiled egg, have a coffee. I don't see how on God's green earth he's got to come back here if he's already started that other job number. Done.
The dual inspector at 56.
Hang on, if I could. We'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. I would like to reply to the comments that were made before we engage in discussion. I'd like to make it clear to everybody here, to this board, anybody who's present, and anybody who can possibly hear. By no means did either of these individuals threaten the township. It's important to understand so that we replay, and I'll do the best that I can. If I didn't explain it properly, I apologize. The individual came to us 2 weeks ago, after our board meeting, and give us notice, literally last Monday sometime, saying, we have a notice, I'm submitting my 2 weeks' notice. I'll work last week and the following week. So he gave us that notice. We approached him to see first, under what terms is he leaving? Maybe the guy says, you know what, I'm getting $2 an hour down the street. Maybe we say, wow, we can give him $2, we'll keep him around. So that's the first step, because he's been with us quite a while. He's pretty respected. So that's the first thing. So he hasn't threatened us. We then formulated a plan to say, okay, well, this is what he's looking for to be comparable to the offer that he had. How does that number compare within other communities? So we began that process of investigating it, And we have to have something to put before the board a week ago Monday. So we submit our proposal to the board, to the clerk, so that it can be on this week's meeting. So we haven't sat on it for 2 weeks. We found out last Monday, we had something prepared in a week after doing our research. There was a statement made saying that we pay our full-time inspectors less. I believe 60% is a low figure, but if we use the 60% figure for wages, for benefits on top of wages, and we multiply that times the current rate, I've got a rate of about $39.63 an hour that we're paying for our full-time inspectors. There was a question made, of the price to contract out. Why didn't we come with a price to contract out? Never have I suggested that the solution to this problem is to contract out. We always have the option of disbanding the building department completely, eliminating all the positions, and going with a private contractor, a third party to administrate that. What we would do in the event that this individual, for whatever reason, doesn't continue in employment, there are other part-time inspectors, say for example, folks that have retired from the township, or folks that say, well, I can work a day here and a day there, but I don't have enough time to make a permanent relationship. So in a short-term notice, we can look to inspectors, whether they be working for other communities or other part-time individuals, and say, can you pick up this inspection? Can you pick up that inspection? Nobody's put a gun to anybody's head, but the solution won't be to go to a third party tomorrow and contract this out. That could be one of the options, but before we do that, we would likely continue the relationship we have with part-time inspectors. For example, one of our retirees has a mechanical license. He hasn't done a lot of inspections, and he said, I wouldn't be comfortable doing some of the larger scale inspections or some of the more complicated work, but some of the basic mechanical, I'd feel comfortable in doing that level of work. So that would be a fallback, and we already have a temporary relationship with him. Another retiree is a plumbing inspector, and, might be able to get him for a day a week. So nobody's put a gun to our head saying that tomorrow the earth will cease to rotate if we don't have a relationship. But the reason why we don't have a price to contract out is because it wouldn't be the solution to the problem. Why wasn't something said 2 weeks ago? Because when we had a board meeting 2 weeks ago, we had no idea what the circumstances were, only a comment from that individual to our engineering services director saying, I've decided to take a position in another community, so I'm giving you my 2 weeks' notice. So that would be at least to try to answer some of the questions. Mr. York?
I'm debating whether you've talked me out of my motion or not, because I'm basing my motion on the fact that I won't have inspectors tomorrow. I need to have inspectors. I need to make sure that this building department moves forward. And in the past, it's gonna take me at least a month to find somebody to do these jobs. And, I get that the retirees, but sometimes they're not available and how much of an inconvenience. But I will say this, the dual inspector, it's gonna be hard. I agree, it's probably gonna be hard to find a guy that's doing all that he's doing right now with the water. I'll give you that. But the full boat on that, keep in mind, we had 2 inspectors. When we did this, now we have 2 part-time inspectors. The full boat on that is $57,000 salary times the 1.6 is $91,200. So even with the increase, which is 10 grand, don't like that. It's roughly going to be $36,000 cost for the year, and you have to add 6%. I forgot the 6% on that. So we're going to have roughly, by not having a full-time employee, $55,000 a year in savings by not having a full-time employee.
By each one. Because it's 2
Well,
individuals.
Yeah, the other one's a little bit lower cost, but generally 50,000, 49,000. That is a savings, and I guess I'm making my motion to just move forward and maybe some things change. I don't even know if we'll have 4 votes, but I don't like it. I agree with everybody else that I don't like making that motion, but at the same time, I'm not hearing a viable option to take care of the residents in the short term. And when I say short term, 2 weeks, the next 2 weeks to a month. I don't hear a viable option, and that's partly why I'm making my motion. And anybody that knows me, I say hit the door, like right away. That's my first thing. I've never had, when somebody comes in, I say, if you don't like it here, there's the door. I've done that for 30 years.
Mr. Gurkes, I would, and I know everybody wants to go home, including myself, I probably have a longer drive than the rest of you. Just real quickly, addressing one of the comments, as to why we didn't bring it forward, you're absolutely right, we didn't know, and we took well beyond Mr. Witt was very accommodating in letting us get the agenda item in late, because we were trying to do our due diligence. To say I was comfortable sitting here and bringing this to Mr. Verkest and then bringing it to you gentlemen, no, I'm not. But I'll tell you what, I get it, especially after talking to other communities. It's not a great thing to bring forward, but I know what we have, and I know what we're up against if we don't. To say he put a gun to our head, 100% absolutely not true. He came in, first of all, he wasn't even working that day. He emailed us to let us know. I want to give you as much notice as I can, so I'm emailing you. I will give you a signed copy tomorrow. Joe and I went in his office, and that was on a conference call. That he came in, I spoke to Ken. My thing was I wanted to try to keep him. We talked to him, and to say that he was getting $36 at the other place, that was never said either, and we can look at the tape. He told us that he was real close, and this is what it would take for him to make up that mileage and drive. So I get it. I don't like it any better. I don't want to be considered an irresponsible manager. I'm looking out for the department, myself in the water and sewer department with backflow, the residents, number one, and I understand your concern, but I do think it's the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
But also, we probably should have raised this long before. I mean,
Yes.
we should
That's
have
no
looked
small
at,
part of
I
this.
mean,
Right.
We
This
really
wouldn't be
should-
$11.
we really should have raised this probably 2 or 3 years ago, up a little bit.
I'm sorry, but
If I were to plot it on a graph, though,
But we don't, but that's not the way we behave here. What we do is, we don't give anybody raises for 20 years and then say, okay, they're at 10, now the market's 16. But that's a function because we've waited so long. If we would have been giving a 2 or 3% raise all along, it wouldn't be that big.
well,
right?
but there's also a change. I mean, 3 years ago, I think the building trades and the value of those inspectors was different. So we've seen an acceleration in that rate.
I agree. The market is the market. I just don't know what the market is. I don't know.
I
don't-
understand, and but I have, and I've personally spoken to the department heads and leaders in surrounding communities, and this is where, when he came up with that rate, at first I was blown away, but then when I hear what full-time, full boat employees are getting.
Plus
and
benefits.
that's what I'm saying, with all the benefits, and they're at $34, $35, $36 an hour with all the benefits. This is where we came up with the 34 and 36 for single certified and dual, almost triple certified. That's why we thought that this was fair.
What I do know is I got a good guy and he does all those inspections, and I'm not sure where we go from here. But
He does, and
I'm not going to do it at 10:30 at night either,
There you go.
right?
Thank you, Mr.
So,
York.
Right.
so that's not to say that tomorrow I don't start looking around.
Well,
Mr. Witt,
I don't know.
again, are you speaking again?
Yeah, I know. I don't know if it'll impact their decision, and I don't think it would. I think they're very reasonable individuals, but for the sanity of the accounting department, if these pays could go into effect the start of the next pay, it would be greatly appreciated on the accounting.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, and that's really effective, and I can't tell you what it would be in a week.
And I'm really mad that I'm paying someone more than what I'm getting, because I said I'd never.
Well, we do that with a lot of employees.
I said,
Mr. York.
yeah, I said I'd never make that motion again.
So is, Mr. York and Mr. Caprell, would it be acceptable to make the pay rate effective, I think it's next Wednesday? I don't
I'm not
think
even
it's
sure
this-
that this motion's going to pass at this point.
I understand,
I
I'm
know,
just saying,
but I
but
just, for the sake of accounting.
That's fine.
continued support?
Yes.
I think we've discussed it enough.
For 2 hours.
It's, and I'm sure in no small part because it's a difficult thing. I appreciate the deliberation. As I said, I'm not comfortable with it either, but my research suggests that this is an applicable rate for these individuals, and I believe this is the right thing to do. That's why I've brought it, and that's why I've tried, and I think Mr. Axtell, and although Mr. Maples is here, he hasn't spoke to it, but I mean, I think he would echo just about everything we said. This is the situation we're in. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Capral to offer an hourly rate of $36 to our multi-certified inspector and $32 per hour to our single licensed electrical inspector with no benefits, effective the beginning of the next pay period, which I believe is next Wednesday. Mr. Witt, will you please take a roll call?
Yes, Mr. York,
Yes.
Mr. Capral,
Yes.
Mr. Batanti.
Yes.
Mr. Brado,
No.
Mr. Tominello,
No.
Mr. Witt, no, Mr. Verkest.
Yes. All right, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next on
Wow.
the agenda would be public comments. We'll open up the floor for public comments.
Wasn't expecting that for swing vote.
Linda Karcheski, resident. Sorry I wasn't here earlier, but I was at Board of Education meeting, and you guys better pay attention what they're gonna be doing over there.
Hey, did sock pass?
Oh, it was a good meeting.
Did it pass or no?
Uh-huh. Oh, they don't tell you any of that stuff. It's different than what you guys do here, believe me.
did School of Choice
Their
pass?
meeting's still going on.
Oh.
I
I was planning
left.
on going there at 8 o'clock, but
Oh, no, their meeting goes on for hours and hours and hours, longer than yours. First
Oh,
of
I'm
all,
sorry.
I came here 2 weeks ago and asked you about snow removal. I'm glad to see that some of it is done. But I'm gonna give you an example. Today, I walked home from work, went down Town Hall to Cracker, went to walk on Cracker. The sidewalk from Town Hall to 16 Mile Road is all ice. I crossed over in the medium, it's all ice. Snow packed down, it's all ice. Crossed over, part of it is clean. Again, could not walk from the Cracker in 16 there to go to the bank because it is all filled with snow. The bank cleared their part, but that one area is still not clean. So I crossed over, gonna walk down Cracker. In front of McDonald's, it's all ice. Again, it's like, I don't know who owns that sidewalk, if it is McDonald's or is it the Mariners Point. But part of the sidewalk's clear, but right in front of McDonald's, again, it's not. So then to go home, I walked up 16 and went down Compo Lane, which is, again, it's all filled with ice. Road Commission did not come down that way. To scrape it, put the salt. The only part that's clear is where people cleared the street. I went again go down, I cut across through the hospital lot. That's how I always do it. Got onto Ballard. Our sidewalk's clear from, they did a wonderful job. By the senior center, right where our property ends, there's more sidewalk there. Again, I went back into the street because it's all, the people that own the rest of the property didn't clear it. It's all filled with snow. Now, it's been a week since it snowed? And it's still not clear. This is why we need an ordinance to get people to clean the sidewalk. And this is a week later. Come on, people. If we want people to walk, we have our kids. You have to stop. I know I'm up here saying the same thing all over again. But the school buses do not take the children to their homes. They have to walk. Stop and think. Some of you went to land screws. Now the buses do not take these kids home. They drop them off on the main street and they have to walk home. They're walking in the street. It is not safe. People speed. I'm sorry. Get after the businesses, the homeowners. at least clean it on the main streets where the kids walk. Come, if you don't believe me, get in your cars and drive. Go tomorrow morning on the way home. That's just one area. Even some parts of the bike path, he comes down with that plow, but he doesn't get to the bottom of it. They don't put salt down there, they just sweep it away. Where I think it's Water and Sewer that does that, they did a beautiful job over there by the senior center. Great job. They were out there when it snowed the next day, they were out there cleaning it all out, cleaning the parking lot. Great job. Now, the rest of it, I would love to see it, and I'm not the only one walking. You could, if I was, I'd be the only footprints in the snow. You got a lot of people that do walking. You want people to come here and enjoy our township, not just in the summertime, in the wintertime. There's people that run on that path. Look how, that path isn't clean, and we're paying them. Look, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing, William Barrell, 18-year resident? I want to talk a little bit, before I talk about this downtown authority, that I know probably all you guys, except for probably Darren, is going to vote for. What I want to say is, before I start talking about this, I want to talk about a guy that's coming in here from West Bloomfield that wants to put up a 48-foot wide by 14-foot high sign out there at the base of North River Road and I-94. Now, I know if I'm coming home from Ford Dearborn Rouge Plant, or I'm coming home from the General Motors Tech Center, and I'm driving out there, and I got a big ghetto sign up there. Billboards are blight. There's no billboards north of Hall Road. We got them all. We got every single billboard in Harrison Township. They don't put up with that in Chesterfield. Drive north on 94. There's none. There is zero. No billboards. Billboards are blight. Billboards are blight. They put the lottery, all that, it's destitution. It's destitution. Billboards are blight. We don't need billboards. We want a cool, trendy area. We can't shovel the walks. We got to put up billboards. We had people coming to the Plan Commission, want to build on seawall tiebacks, want to build on 20-foot wide lots. They all come in here, because we'll do anything here for a penny. We got a penny chasing a dollar. Think of the big picture. We take off the rose-colored glasses. Let's get to work. Let's look at the big picture. And then with this downtown authority, I don't mind a fat cat coming in, putting up a Ferris wheel in a hotel, but you know that hotel's not going to make it without gambling. This is not going to be Traverse City unless you tear all these houses down and you put golf courses up. All you guys' houses, I don't care if you're on a canal, you're in a new neighborhood, that'll be a golf course. If you want this like Traverse City, we'll put up gambling and we'll put up golf courses all the way around, if that's what we want. But I don't think that's what we want. This downtown authority is a Downtown Authority Act, Act 197 of 1975. An authority with approval of the municipal government body may levy, that's you guys, a additional tax on tangible and personal property of not more than 1 mil into the district and all that stuff. There's a lot of half-truths on this stuff. Yeah, you guys are going to have to approve it. But they can also take your property under Section 10, 125, 1660, transfer and use of private property as a Downtown Development Authority, Act 197 of 1975. They can take your property with your guys' approval. If a fat cat wants to come in and buy a piece of property and put something viable in there, then let them do it. In 2015, he can do a PowerPoint on the thing, on the board there, do his AutoCAD, put up his blueprints and do it. We don't need a downtown authority to steal our money. It's always somebody stealing our money. Earnest, hard-working money stealing our money. Let's look at the big picture. Throw these guys out that want to put up a big billboard. We don't need billboards in this township. There's no billboards north of Hall Road. Zero. And they want them bigger and bigger and bigger, and you best believe everybody and their brother is going to want to put up a 48-foot wide by 14 high by 70-foot high billboard with 2 sides out there. Everywhere they're going to want to put them. Billboards are blight. When you Google something on the internet, they profile you, they advertise on your phone or on Facebook or on Twitter. We don't need any more billboards. If this guy wants to build something in his plant over there, let him build a 12-speed transmission. Let him build something. We got a run-your-mouth economy. Let's actually do something. Let's not have billboards. It's a run-your-mouth economy. We don't need it. Build a 12-speed transmission over there. We need no more billboards. Stop the blight. We want a trendy neighborhood. Let's shovel the snow. Let's beef up the ordinances and have a second gear. Drop it in second, hit the gas. Thank you.
Thank you.
I like that. Drop it in a second. Hit the
Jim Sunstock, 31698 San Juan. On the issue of the billboard, I would like to see this board issue a moratorium on any further construction of billboards in the township until you examine your ordinance. As he stated, we are the only community that has them. And there's nothing to say that they're gonna not come back later on and say, oh, well, I'd like one at the corner of 16 Mile and I-94. And there's property along there that can be used that way. Or if it can be varied, can have a variance on it, and then you can get a special land use. I mean, this board could basically say we're not gonna allow it. The guy that's putting it up is not from this area. He comes over and says he's gonna do stuff for the citizens of Harrison Township, but he lives in West Bloomfield. He don't have to look at it out there. But, over in Harrison, that's fine over there, especially at one of the gateway entrances to the township. It's unbelievable. And I know you can do a moratorium, because Mr. Huth, you've done them several times over in Shelby. So this board should do a moratorium on them, and we'll take a look at that law. Why should we be the only community that has them all along I-94? On the issue of the downtown development district, at the last meeting when you guys discussed that, the public hearing, you indicated that you were going to have the hearing on that at the township meeting, the first township meeting in February. Well, instead, you got it scheduled for February 2nd. You in a hurry or something? What's going on? Well, wait, no, the residents probably won't get a notice of this, because they won't know about it, and if they look back and relied on what they had heard, well, it's supposed to be the first meeting in February. That's what I was thinking until I saw this. What's the big hurry? As far as the issue of who's going to opt in or opt out, has any further places indicated they're going to opt in or opt out? I don't know how the language works either way. Or we're going to get surprised that night. For instance, is the township planning on opting in? Or are you going to surprise us that night too, for the fire department and the police department? What about the library board? What did they do? As far as another issue, and I think it's an issue that needs to be brought up, one of the things that happens when you come in here as a resident and speak to this board is that after you're all done, then you have one individual who sits there and basically negates and negates everything you supposedly said. And he does that under the guise of, well, he's answering the questions or whatever that. The problem is he's giving out erroneous answers. For instance, it was stated at the last board meeting that Harrison Township has never used the power of eminent domain against anybody. Never. So we couldn't possibly do that under a downtown development district. I personally saw the paperwork that was threatening a family with eminent domain. I personally saw it. I was called over to the house by the daughter, and an older gentleman was all upset about it. So you don't do it, baloney. You made that case, it was a threat. And the threat was, if you don't do it, it's going to cost you a lot of money because we're going to get it anyhow. That's what it said. As far as some of the statements that were made as far for the taxing authority and so on, Mr. Bardell clarified that you guys do have the ability, apparently, to agree with a proposed tax in the downtown development district. You do have the ability to grab people's property in the downtown development district. So, you know what? That's fine. The only problem is that on the downtown development district, one of the individuals that's going to be on there is Mr. Verkest, the same guy that comes up here and filibusters everybody all night long on every issue until he gets his way. So, you know what? You guys, everybody's watching this. This thing with the wages is just unbelievable. I'm sure there's 1,000 people out in the subdivision, in the township, that look at it and say, I never got a $9 an hour raise. There's salaried people that never got that kind of raise in an hour. So, you know what? And the question becomes is, wait, it finally came out it was going to cost us $10,000 per person. Well, wait, like I said, 10,000 here, 27,000 there, 6,000 over here. It doesn't matter. It's not my money. I can spend it any way I want. I'm the king. And I will, as one final statement, say, Mr. Verkest, you really missed your calling. You should have become a union representative, because that's what you are. You aren't acting like management. You're acting like a union guy. You're making all of their arguments and all of their excuses for raising their pay. It's too bad. Good night.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment. And although I guess I'm accused of doing this, I'm going to do the best I can to answer the questions. The first resident who spoke of a sidewalk ordinance. It is problematic. We ultimately rely on the goodwill of business owners to shovel or clear the sidewalks in front of their businesses. We don't, as far as I know, have any authority to force them to do so. So, you want to
Mr.
speak to that?
Supervisor, if I could comment, I
Yep.
can tell you that I had a discussion with the planner, and I asked the planner to craft a sidewalk cleaning ordinance as a regulatory ordinance. So as soon as that's done and the planning commission has time to review it, it will come to the board. I do think, you know, we do have more sidewalks over the years, so we do need to address it. If we make it a regulatory ordinance that, you know, there's no issues with grandfathering, or we never had to do it before, so just to let you know, that it'll be coming back in front of the board here, hopefully within the next month or so.
Good, good. Without it, we're limited to take action.
Yes.
A question was asked, why February 2nd for a meeting on the DDA as opposed to February 9th? What's the hurry? Well, there literally is a hurry, and I'll do my best to explain that. This board, when we considered the DDA ordinance and the option of forming a DDA, one of the major points of discussion was the issue of whether or not taxing entities were going to opt in or ultimately whether they were going to opt out or not exercise that right, in which case they were in. And the thought amongst the board members, at least in the discussion I recall, was if taxing authorities all choose to opt out, there's really no logic in forming the DDA. And the discussion was, from the time that we held our public hearing last year, taxing entities have until January 30 to opt out. Our meeting can't be held before January 30, so the planner's original timeline showed a timeline of February 9th to have a meeting to consider and adopt the ordinance. The problem is, there's also a timeline for when members of the DDA can be appointed by the board, and he suggested that timeline is being compressed into the same meeting. And I didn't see any logic in encouraging people to apply for a DDA that doesn't exist. So what I'd asked him, and then you say, well, why not just push the whole timeline forward? The fourth Monday in May is ultimately when the tax roll is certified. So if the process isn't complete by the fourth Monday in May, then the tax capture mechanism basically skips one whole year and doesn't occur for another year. So it was his recommendation to work from the fourth Monday in May backward to give us a timeline, which is how he came up with the opportunity to have a special meeting for the purposes of considering the DDA ordinance. So February 2nd at 7 p.m. is a special meeting for the purpose of considering this board to consider the adoption of an ordinance to establish a DDA. If the board chooses to do so, then at that time we can solicit applications for residents and property owners, whether they're business owners, whether they're residents of the township, to serve on the DDA board. There's also a citizens advisory board that has to be formed, and there's a timeline for all of that. So what's the hurry? Basically reverse engineering from the fourth Monday in May backward. The planner mapped that out and put those dates before us and proposed those two dates. And I believe the resident was correct that at the meeting, the timeline at that time showed a February 9th date, but it said at the same time that we would also consider appointments to the board. And it seems that how would I say to someone now, I solicit your application to serve on the DDA, when I don't even know if I have a DDA? It seems kind of out of order.
Just on that, if I could, there was a group of individuals that were nice enough to supply their email address during that meeting. They all received the notice, so that way those people that expressed an interest in keeping up to date on that did receive that notice from the clerk's office. So wanted to make sure that those people who wanted that did get it. So that it did go out as soon as this was made available.
Good, and thank you for that. Who has opted out? So far, we've only heard from the Huron-Clinton Metro Park Authority. They assess 0.2 mils of property tax. Their board bet, and they supplied us with a certified from their secretary or clerk saying that they opt out. So that was 0.2 mils. I also know that the Harrison Township Library, which has a half a mil property tax, they've called a special meeting, I believe, for this Wednesday for the purposes of considering opting out. There was a statement made that I said Harrison Township has never used the power of eminent domain. I am not aware of any time that they've used the power of eminent domain. I'm not aware of the circumstance the resident referred to, but I am still not aware of a time that that this board exercised the power of eminent domain and took people's property. I've stated this before, I'll state it again. This board does have the power of eminent domain, the taking of property. So does every municipal body. The DDA does not have the power of eminent domain. The DDA can accept land that is taken through eminent domain by the township board. So the DDA has no additional powers as it pertains to eminent domain or the taking of land or property. They have no additional authority. They have, in essence, no authority. The DDA cannot act as an independent body to take public or take private property. The DDA does not have the authority to levy a tax. Those authorities rest with the board. The board can grant that authority, but without this board taking action, the DDA cannot levy a tax. So, in anticipation of that, I worked with Mr. Huth, and the ordinance that will be presented to the board for consideration next Monday specifically states all of those things, that the DDA shall not do those things without the express authority of the Board of Trustees, which is a matter of the act, it's a matter of law. And then finally to say, I'm a union guy, I'm gonna guess that the firefighters, and the folks in AFSCME wouldn't say I'm a union guy, but I don't know whether that's a,
We could have a good debate on that.
I don't know whether that's a compliment or an insult, but whatever it is, I know there's some folks that might disagree. Other board comment? Hearing none, I'd be looking.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Support.
It's been supported, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried, meeting adjourned, thank you, board.
How did you give all that to the union and then vote no on that item?